То якщо буде можливість, то зайдіть подивитися. Бо там деякі були 12, деякі 6, деякі 4, деякі 0 були. Во.
Sorry for the interruption. Yevhen, please continue your report.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. I need the permission to share my screen, please.
So it's the only inconvenience of this. Yes, I permitted you.
Okay. Okay, I stop it in the second level of GDL model, and I will repeat that we understand the situation as a state of the world which presents some pragmatic interest, which to agent, which is worth to be identified. We store the descriptions of the specific situation as a conceptual model or patterns of this situation in a separate repository with corresponding situation ontologies. And there is a mapping between current contextual ontology to situation ontology, but situation ontologies can be also does not completely overlap with contextual ontology. It can be over in a subset of this contextual ontology on the one hand. On the other hand, it can include the other elements, for example, the elements from history or other information which should be obtained in order to better identify these situations. There are different methods to allowing us to identify specific situations. For example, one of this method is using queues as a combination of specific parameters or values or range of values from the objects of contextual ontologies, which can point to the probable situation. In the third level of GDL model, when the situation is already identified, we need to form some action, and analyze the impact of these actions. In this, basically, this requires answering the question: what change in the world is desirable given situation identified? How introduce this change? This process can be formalizing using contextual graphs, which start with identified situations, and we and each describe the contextual knowledge and the actions between the steps of these contextual knowledges. Each such action, for a number of for a specific identified situation, there is a number of possible scenarios of actions developing, which are all described by these graphs. Actions in this contextual graph is tasks. Task knowledge is quite a different body of knowledge when we compare it with situational knowledge or, for example, contextual knowledge. Task also can be reused across different situations and across different contexts. And basically, tasks require how to perform specific actions. And whether this performance will be successful or not successful. So we can use this contextual graph and when selecting specific actions and tasks. And as a conclusion to my talk, I would like to highlight once more main results obtained. In our work, we argue that situation awareness process will be better understood, will be better modeled when we will use smaller ontologies. Also, we show how those smaller ontologies, like contextual situation and task ontologies, are dependent one from another ontologies. And as a further possible direction of research. We are interested in researching, for example, the dynamic change of ontologies from one moment of time to another moment of time, or, for example, researching how feedbacks works in this GDL model. So it would be all for my today talk. Please ask me questions.
So, any questions?
Mm-hmm. How could we use the results of your work? Please, maybe in some words about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
There are different systems which will need to implement situation awareness. As a current very popular system we have now, it is systems which implement driverless the car, which don't need a driver, so they can look in their environment and understand the typical situation which are happening in this environment. Also, this this approach can be used in different kind of robots, for example, which also need to understand their environment and act swiftly without the interference of human.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
Well, I think we can move on to another report, Corpus-Driven approach to Ukrainian E-anecdotes study, presented by Alla, Luchyk, Oksana, Taran, Oleksandra, Palchevska, Natalia, Sharmanova, Ganna, Demydenko. So, please, I pass you the word.
Thank you. My name is Oksana Taran, and I'm from Lviv Polytechnic University. So just a moment.
So, please adhere to time limits.
Mm-hmm. So I want to say that it's a pleasure to be in Kharkiv Zero virtually, and I'm glad I could join to your conference. Thank you for your invitation. And let me present our study, Corpus-Driven approach to Ukrainian E-anecdotes study. Ukrainian anecdotes are considered from the linguistic folklore, literary studies, and also ethnopsychologically point of view. The internet anecdote or e-anecdote as a genre becomes more actual during the last decade. However, the studies of the kind on the Ukrainian language material don't exist. Oh. And you see my presentation, no?
Yeah, we see.
The purpose of our study is to create the Ukrainian E-anecdotes corpus and to show the corpus capabilities in the study of the structural and linguistic features of Ukrainian E-anecdotes through the quantitative parameters prism. We have analyzed all the open corpora developed for the Ukrainian language, but none of them contain the anecdote subcorpus. And accordingly, there are no anecdotes corpus-based studies that emphasize the urgency of this work. And also we analyze the free lexicons, part of speech taggers and parsing tools, which can be used for the Ukrainian language. So the most suitable for our task is Sketch Engine. It is commercial corpus management and corpus query software with a user-friendly interface. A collection of E-anecdotes, of Ukrainian E-anecdotes, is composed of 500 texts by random sampling from various Ukrainian language sites. All texts were normalized. Further corpus exploitation is done with the sketch engine tools. Corpus statistics is given on the slide. And now I want to present exploitation of corpus and results of our study. So the first. Word list option allows you to find the most frequent tokens in anecdotes, and at the slide you can see the frequency list that shows the high frequency of personal pronouns in different forms. This is in line with the dialogue format. Parsing allows to determine the sentence's quantitative parameters by intonation. So the sentences consist only of punctuation marks and ellipses or several exclamation marks and don't contain verbal components. As you can see, half of the sentences in the corpus are intonationally and emotionally colored. Determination of rare determination of rare or unusual words in the E-anecdotes corpus was done by comparing with the frequency in the reference corpus. So as Ukrainian Web 2014 contains more than 1 billion tokens, it can reflect the general language trends. If a word with a frequency 1 in a focus corpus, I mean our corpus, has frequency 0 in the reference corpus, this Ukrainian Web, it is considered as a rare or unusual word. As a result, 997 such tokens, it is 5%, were detected. As you can see on the slide, the anecdote as a conversational genre reflects the full oral non-formal speech linguistic means range. Keywords with the same tool but on the different criteria words which are very frequent in the focus corpus were determined. In the obtained results, all nouns and verbs with a frequency of 10 were marked with the help Excel tools, semantically close were lemmatized and combined. As we can see on the table, the anecdote is often exclusively anthropocentric direction. The most frequent keywords indicate the anecdotes about family and gender predominance in the corpus. Concordance and collocations. And the use of concordance for the most frequency keywords made it possible to identify some linguistic features. For example, the predominance of the accusative case for the token cum. Accordingly, it appears in the speech of the characters. For each, the most frequency keyword, we verified collocations. It allows to reveal paid characters, дружина, чоловік, mama, tato, since these tokens have the highest log dice as a statistic core for identifiable collocations.
Sorry, interrupting you, and how much time do you need to finish?
1 minute, only 1 minute.
Thank you.
The ethnonym Ukrainians was found among the frequency keyword. This indicates the predominance in corpus of anecdotes with the outer stereotype, however, perhaps in contrast to other ethnic groups. So, conclusions. The corpus-driven approach with sketch engine tools allows to identify the following linguistic and general characteristics of the anecdote within the corpus. Various forms, personal pronouns high frequency due to the anecdote's dialogic form. In terms of intonation, about 50% of sentences are intonationally and emotionally colored. Anecdotes as a conversational channel reflect the full range of oral non-formal speech linguistic means. Analysis of collocation by localized score revealed some features. So, as corpus GRAC is the largest in volume and functionally corpus, it was chosen to download the created Ukrainian E-anecdotes corpus for future research, and you can find it in GRAC version 11. Thank you for attention. And how to...
Thank you very much. Please, your questions.
Yeah, I have one question. Please tell me what types of markup did you do in your corpus? Maybe semantic or morphological, I don't know, if you use it at all.
Thank you for your question. We use Catch Engine tools, and it has only parsing on sentence sets. For future, we downloaded this corpus to GRAC because GRAC has a morphological tagging, semantical tagging, and it allows to make more researches, more wide researches.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I see.
May I?
Yes, please, Maria. You're welcome.
Maria Shvedova. First, thank you for a very interesting talk. And I thought maybe we should compare these anecdotes, this corpus, not with web texts, but with the fiction texts. Maybe it will be closer result. And I'll check right now this very interesting detail about the form of word kume in our fiction corpus. And what do you think about this proposition? You compared with the fifth web text, but it's I think it's journalistic text, most of this web corpus.
I don't think that kume causative case is more frequent, is very frequent in other texts. Maybe because in anecdotes is one of the main personage. But I think about it in future.
About this stylistic difference.
Maybe.
All right.
Thank you.
So, thank you. So next report, implementing semantic annotation in Ukrainian corpus by Vasyl Starko. So, Vasyl, you're welcome.
Thank you. Can you see the first slide of the presentation?
Yes, we see.
Yes, we are.
Great. So there are various approaches to semantic annotation, and most of them are lexicon-based. Until recently, there was no publicly available large-scale resource or tool for processing Ukrainian language text at the semantic level. And this was the motivation for developing the Ukrainian Semantic Lexicon, USL, and modifying the tag text tagger. So my presentation will be about these two tools and resources. The main principle that is adopted in USL is that it's a faceted approach as opposed to hierarchical approach. And I described this in detail last year at Collins, so you can find that in the publication. One thing that I'd like to mention now is that the sense division in the USL is coarse-grained as compared to traditional monolingual dictionaries. Here is an overview of the semantic tag set. the majority of the tags are taxonomic, and there are also some other types of tags. And there are four classes of words that are given semantic tags. Nouns, which are subdivided into concrete nouns, abstract nouns, and proper nouns. Then there are verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. All other parts of speech are not included. You can find the full semantic tag set as it is today at the website of the GROK corpus at this address, uacorpus.org. It's available both in English, and if you switch here to the Ukrainian version, you will see the same information in Ukrainian. There have been a number of modifications done to the initial semantic tag set. So the process was that I first developed the semantic tag set, and then I tried to apply it to the most frequent words of Ukrainian. And in the process, I saw that modifications were necessary. So some tags were added, some tags were renamed without changes to their content. Some tags were rearranged, for example, to create two-level hierarchies in some places. And there were a few cases where an existing tag was reinterpreted as having a broader or narrower scope. And in general, this process of applying the initial tag set to the most frequent words of Ukrainian helped to refine the tag set, make it more precise, better tuned to Ukrainian. So the initial stage of developing the Ukrainian semantic lexicon involved semantic annotation of more than 1,000 entries in the descending order of frequency. There are two reasons for this approach. The first one is efficiency. If I annotate a high frequency word, one high frequency word, it will appear many times in the corpus, so it will make a greater contribution to the lexical coverage. And by annotating 1,000 words, we can cover a higher proportion of the corpus. And the second reason is that it's a testing ground for the classification scheme, as I have just described, and it's also a foundation for further rapid annotation. Just to give you an example of how multifaceted tag assignment happens, I use two devices: double ampersand symbol for regular polysemy, such as, for example, Luchyk Hospital, which can refer to an organization or to a building, but it's either or in each specific context. And then I use the single ampersand symbol to join semantic features that occur simultaneously. For example, these words such as chvilina, minute, hodina, hour, and so on, they refer to the period of time and also as a unit of time. So it makes no sense to split them into two different senses, but by using the ampersand, I can join these two elements of meaning. Here are a few examples for different parts of speech. I'd like to point out that we have homonyms here for holova. XP1 indicates the morphological homonym, referring to the person, like the head of an organization. And XP2 refers to all inanimate senses. And in the USL, as you can see, it has 3 senses. So the numbers indicate different senses. And then what follows here, the sequence of tags describe each sense. So the first inanimate sense is it's a body part. And the second one is an abstract meaning referring to the mental domain, and so on. As I've said, semantic annotation in the USL is coarse-grained, and a little comparison with sense division in SUM 11 shows that, in general, the number of senses in the USL is lower. And that is true even if we don't count the shades of meaning in SUM 11. For some of the words, high-frequency words, there are many shades of meaning. In some formal models, they can be counted as individual senses. Now, in the process of annotating top-frequency words, I have found that spectral pairs are best annotated together, regardless of frequency, because in most cases, they receive the same tags. And also, it makes sense to look at closely knit semantic clusters of words, because then you can quickly annotate them as a group based on a core frequency, high frequency word that has already been annotated. And one example is dumate, to think, which has this semantic annotation, and there are almost 50 derivationally related words, from which 40 were assigned the same sequence of syntax. So by looking at the whole nest of these words, we can quickly annotate most of them with minimal changes. The USL, as it is now, has 1.8 senses per entry. Half of the words are unambiguous, they have only one sense. Less than a third have two senses. And moving down the frequency list, I expect that the number of senses per entry will decrease because those words will have lower number of senses, even in monolingual dictionaries. The USL has been implemented in Grok in version 10 for the first time, which had this number of 652 million tokens at the time. And as you know, as has been mentioned before, Grok is morphologically tagged by the tagger, tag text. And the tagger uses Vasum, which is a large morphological dictionary of Ukrainian. So it takes morphological tags from this dictionary and applies them, assigns them to every recognized word in Grok. Now, we have updated the tagger so that now it performs both morphological and semantic tagging in one pass. And you can run this one-line command, you give it your input text file, any text file in Ukrainian, and you will receive as an output the same text with morphological and semantic tags. And this tagger draws semantic data from the USL, which is stored on GitHub. Here is an example of a simple semantic query in Grok using the Crystal Bonito interface. So to use semantic tags to search for them, you need to use the CQL, Corpus Query Language, and use SEMTag. So in this case, SEMTag is equal to something that comes before build and then something, anything that follows build. So here the key component is build. So we want to search for any nouns that have this semantic tag build anywhere in their sequence of semantic tags. Three types of sequences will be found. Here is an example of a more complex query in Grok, and this is presented using the context interface. And as you can see, there's a combination of morphological tags, such as verb, and here the dative case, and semantic tag. Here, the tag that we're focused on is speech. And so you want to find this query will retrieve phrases like показати народові or скажіть синові, and so on.
Vasyl, how much time do you need to finish?
1 minute. I'm coming to the end. So lexical coverage. How many words in Grok 10 does the USL cover with semantic tags? Well, we have calculated that it's slightly above 34%. But it should be mentioned that there's some high-frequency classes of words, pronouns, conjunctions, and particles that are absolutely outside of the scope of semantic annotation. We don't annotate them. But these account for 30% of words in the corpus. So the theoretical ceiling for semantic coverage is 70%. And USL 1.0, these 1,000 most frequent words cover nearly half of this theoretical maximum. So to sum up, the USL and the text tagger have been updated or developed, and the semantic annotation in its initial form has been implemented in Grok. More than 1,000 high-frequency lemmas have been annotated. They cover slightly more than 34% of the words in the corpus. And in the future, I hope to expand the USL by adding more words to it, and then applying that annotation in the next versions of the corpus. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We have 10 minutes. Dear presenters, please adhere to time limit. We have 6, 7 minutes for each presentation. So we overrun our session. So please keep within this time frame. Okay. So please your questions to Vasyl.
I have a question for Vasyl. Thank you for your report. It was really interesting. And I have such a question. How do you make semantic tags for slang words? Slang words may have different variants, graphical variants. For example, bespredel, and so on. How do you make semantic tags for these words in corpus in Grok? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Well, I haven't gotten to the slang words that are not as frequent. I work with the words that are included in Vasum. So right now we have more than 400,000 lemmas there, and some slang words are there. Not sure if bespredel is not in Vasum, I will not tag it, okay? Because it makes no sense. We'll first have to add the word to Vasum, and then when it's added to Vasum, then it can be semantically annotated, okay? So the general approach is the same. It's just I have to work with the words that are in Vasum.
Thank you.
So no more questions? All right. So next report is synonymizer of the Ukrainian language, stage of creation, features of database update, and software implementation. Presented by Anna Sitar, Oleg Vetrov, and Vladislava Yevchenko. So please, you're welcome. Oleg Vetrov, will you present the report? So, Oleg,
yes, hi, Coach. Good day for everyone. I'm sorry, but I have some technical problems. 1 minute or 1 minute, please. Так.
So if you are cut off, so if our session is cut off, we shall restart at once.
Maybe next report.
Sorry?
Maybe next report.
All right. So Oleg, while Oleg is fixing the problem, let us move on to another report by Olena Andrushenko, entitled "On Marking in PS by Exclusive Only in EEBO Corpus, Syntactic and Information Structural Consideration." You are welcome. So please.
Hello, dear colleagues, and just give me a few seconds to start the slide. Okay. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah.
We can see.
So I would like you to present the results of my investigation entitled "On Marking NPs by Exclusive Only in Early English Books Online, Corpus, Syntactic and Information Structural Consideration." And As to adverb only, it is classified as a focusing exclusive, and our previous research on Middle English exclusives shows that its positional variations in Middle English correlate with sentence information structure and foci types, and thus a post-modifying position of adverb dominates, which is particularly evident with NPs. And in contrast to this, the collocates from BNC and COCA corpus reveal that only in the position before the NP occurs more frequently than the adverb is placed in a post-modifying position. And basically these figures triggered the question in what period this transition in adverb placement occurs and how information structure.
А підкажіть, зараз тут ми на конференції.
In further periods of English evolution, that is early modern English. And the current study attempts to investigate the adverb when marking NPs in the corpus of early English books online, and it is proposed to confine to the time frame 1470s, 1590s, and to analyze around 4,000 instances, and the patterns under analysis are presented on the slide. So we use collocate search, which is presented in figure 1, to retrieve the patterns. And instances with only are further analyzed with relation to information structure of the sentence, and we single out to a position given versus new information with further analysis of sentence topic and focus. So this part was done manually, and to illustrate how givenness is annotated, we turn to discourse representation theory, and basically figures 2-4 illustrate box notation of discourse reference and the merging operation in the discourse. And each discourse referent is assigned a tags, and tags that emerge as a result of annotation are presented in table 1. So this is the first layer given new information. And so the tags for the second dichotomy, that is topic versus focus, are presented in table 2. So we single out topic pragmatically as well as focus. So topic is what the sentence is about, focus is the most salient information with further subdivision. And actually results obtained. So the first model, which is only plus noun, so the analysis reveals that only functioning as an exclusive adverb in this model is limited to 17.6% of instances, and the overall analysis of patterns indicates that when adverb only is in a pre-modifying position, the NP marks it marks represents most frequently emphatic and contrastive focus. And the notable characteristic of only plus noun model is that the adverb preceding a noun is predominantly registered with the NP that function as sentence subject. And actually you can see the results in figure 5. You may see the most frequent foci type registered for this pattern. And as to another word order which is registered with this pattern, it's OVS word order, and it's registered only in around 6% of instances, and it's rather controversial in terms of analysis. And comparing the information structure of the sentences that have different word orders, that is SVO and OVS, it was noticed that with SVO order, verb renders discourse new information, whilst in OVS pattern, it presents discourse given and activated information, and which can explain the inverted word order for this pattern. Another pattern analyzed, so only plus preposition plus noun, and the contextual analysis of tokens shows that in 95% of instances, it is followed by the NP, while the rest of the examples were eliminated due to the fact that noun position is occupied usually by the verb. So, and figure 6 shows the frequency of various foci types and the information status in the discourse. And this model is often employed when NP renders new information and informational focus, which is a distinguishing feature of this model compared to the previous model. And the last model under consideration was noun plus only, and instances in the corpus